Recently you saw me set up this beautiful orange guitar from Henry's, and the one question that I had was how modifiable is it? If we want to change the look of the pickguard, or perhaps put different pickups in there, how easy is that to achieve with the standard parts readily available to us on the market? So I've stripped off all of the cream plastic parts, and we're going to take a look at how difficult or how easy it is to change the look of your Henry's guitar. Just like any Strat-shaped object, there is no guarantee that standard Fender replacement parts will fit without some degree of modification. Even with a one-to-one match, there might be subtle fit issues that cause misalignment of screw holes or a lack of clearance for pickups. The parity of this Henry's is unknown to me, so before I spend money on new parts, I'm going to get inside this to confirm how close it is to the pickguards I can readily buy from my usual sources. This will also let me know the quality of the electronics, shielding and other factors before I bother forging ahead with customization. This is good news. This is what I was hoping to see, an HSH route, so if we do want to modify this guitar to have a humbucker in the neck position, we can do it without any routing required. This cavity is also completely done in copper shielding tape, which is great news. We don't have to do that ourselves. We've got a decent quality switch that's being protected from the shielding layer by some insulating tape there. There's probably a better solution for that, but I'll leave it alone. And our pickups are quite nice as well. Grey fibre board on the back of the single coils, that's nice. We've got our braided cloth wire, which is also nice. And a nickel base plate on the back of the humbucker. This all looks to be good quality stuff. Large 250 kilo ohm potentiometers, Alpha brand. They look quite good. This seems to be a B, a linear pot for the volume control, which is unusual. You'd usually have that as an A, an audio taper, a logarithmic taper. So I wonder why they've made that decision. In any case, we've got decent quality potentiometers, a very decent quality switch, and very nice looking pickups. The other thing I wanted to confirm with this was whether or not it matched a standard Strat template. This is one for an HH configuration, but otherwise is a standard Strat layout. And laying that over the top, that looks to be a good match. Flipping it over, we're also able to confirm that yes, all of the screw holes align, all the pickup positions align. So if you did get a Strat guard, this would be almost a direct swap. The only thing that looks like we would need to change is the neck pocket. There is a slightly different fit to this guard than there would be on a standard Strat guard at the neck pocket, but that's easy enough to modify. And it would fit under the lip of the fingerboard anyway, so I don't think that's too much of an issue to just a little modification if we were trying to replace the colour of the pick guard. So that's good to know. Satisfied with those results, I began a full teardown of the pickguard, desoldering it from the output jack and the grounding cables. I made the purchase of a 3-ply black pickguard, black knobs, parchment single coil covers, a chrome cover for the humbucker, and an audio taper volume pot from Northwest Guitars. This will be our new look for the instrument. I need to remove the old linear volume pot and the humbucker from the wiring loom, but everything else can stay intact for ease of refitting later. Fitting a chrome cover to the humbucker isn't a complicated process, but there are a few tips to know if you want it to be a successful mod. Firstly, we need to scratch up the humbucker base plate and the chrome plating on the inside of the cover so that we can get down to raw metal that solder will adhere to. Soldering to chrome is impossible, and the smooth surface of the nickel-silver base plate doesn't have the tooth to take solder. For this, we need a wide, flat solder tip and a lot of heat. All of this metal will behave as a heat sink, so a low wattage needle tip iron just can't dump enough heat to get decent solder flow going. Once the solder has adhered the base plate to the cover and we've created an electrically connected cage, we need to submerge the humbucker into a pot of molten wax. Without this step, the thin planar surface of the cover would vibrate independently and potentially introduce microphonic behaviour to the pickup, adding unwanted noise to the signal and making it more prone to feedback. The liquid wax will permeate all airspace within the pickup, and when removed from the pot and allowed to solidify, will consolidate the cover with the rest of the pickup, eliminating any microphonic issues. As noted already, the neck pocket of this new pickguard will need to be reshaped in order to correctly fit the guitar. I'm laying down some low-tack masking tape and tracing the shape of the original guard onto the new one. With a sharp blade, I'm carefully scoring the outline of that traced line. This shallow score in the plastic will act to guide the thin blade of my jeweler's saw, preventing it wandering and keeping my cuts straight. This saw cut can be cleaned up and smoothed over with fine cut files that I got from Crimson Guitars. They really do make some fantastic tools that have application far beyond their intended use. It's also important here to cut on the downstroke only to prevent separating the layers of the pickguard and utterly ruining it. With the test fit confirmed, we can install all of the electronics onto the new pickguard. I'm wiring up a new audio taper volume pot, which has a much more useful curve for rolling back to clean up the gain of your signal. The original linear volume pot had very little perceivable change across the majority of its travel, and then a very sudden collapse between 3 and 1 on the knob. I find this completely unusable for making adjustments. Logarithmic tapers represent a more equal reduction as you turn the control down. If I back off 20%, it reduces the gain by about 20%. Why would I ever want it to do otherwise? This change made the volume control much more intuitive. It's also worth noting that I had to enlarge the humbucker mounting screw holes in the pickguard up to 3mm to match the M3 screws being used. The screw holes for the switch and the single coils also needed to be countersunk to match the screws. That's the usual nonsense that comes with changing pickguards. There is no universal standard for the type of screws being used on guitars. Despite the new guards seemingly matching up perfectly to the old one, once everything was installed, an alignment issue made itself known. The pickguard wasn't aligning itself with the screw holes on the left side of the body, which was due to the bridge pickup setting a touch too far neckwards and fouling on the body route. I attempted to rectify this with a chisel, hoping I could take off a small amount of material. However, the hard clear coat under the colour proved to be quite tough to remove this way. A router would make quick work of this, but I'm a little time constrained as this needs to be set up and ready to play a show by tomorrow night. So for now, I'm going to fill in the existing screw holes with toothpicks and wood glue, reposition the holes and come back to the humbucker route at a later date. The clearance really only needs an extra millimetre to be sufficient, so we can work with this temporarily with no negative impact to the guitar's performance. Even under the most perfect circumstances, a wee fill-in ReDrill is usually necessary. One last thing I wanted to do was reshape the nut. Well, actually it was the first thing, but let's pretend otherwise and ignore the glaring continuity error in this narrative. The nut slots were cut to the appropriate depth, so no issues there, but the overall height of the nut was left too damn high. There's this issue that occurs if the strings sit deep in the well of a nut slot with too much material above and beside them. It makes it far more likely that the strings will bind in the slots and not return to pitch after bends. By removing the excess material above the slots, so that the strings are not captive above their tallest point, that is, the string should protrude slightly from the top of the nut, it significantly reduces the chance of binding. This is coupled with back-angling the nut. The nut should be tallest on its leading edge and fall away from the strings as they head towards the tuning machines. This again minimises the amount of material surrounding the string, eliminating the likelihood of binding, which predominantly happens on the back edge of the nut. The strings should ideally meet the nut at a single point of contact on its front edge, have just enough material around them to keep them in place, with the nut falling away from the string headstock side. The fewer points of contact with the nut, the less chance of tuning related issues the guitar strings will have. This absolutely had the desired effect, as this guitar held its tuning across a 2.5-hour set. Finally, we'll give the guitar a little spritz and polish, restring it, and test out those tones. This was all done with the purpose of using this guitar live with the Scottish Pink Floyd tribute act. I'm filling in on guitar for a couple of shows while their usual guitarist Scoosh is on paternity leave. My first show was in the delightful Webster Memorial Theatre in Arbroath.
Just arrived in Arbroath, the tech team's setting up. We've done a little line check, we're getting sound. So we're just about ready to go.
And here's the aftermath of last night's show with the broken G string, which happened at the very end of the second to last song. It managed to survive all the way through there and finally gave up at that point. But I'm very pleased on how the guitar as a whole stood up to the live environment. It was effortless to play, didn't have to think about the instrument, and it got some really great tones, especially for the distortions, and all the solos that I had to do were done on this. So I can't praise Henry's enough for just how well the instrument stands up to a live use case. The broken string is slightly fortuitous, as I do need to go back in here and make a couple of other adjustments. The bridge pickup, the humbucker, is still sitting at an angle due to the wood on this side of the pickup being too close to the pickup. We need to go in there and just, with a router, remove about 1 millimeter more material to get the clearance. So that's one thing to look out for if you do want to modify your Henrys with a standard Stratocaster pickguard. If you've got a bridge humbucker route, it's probably going to be slightly further neckward than what the original guard was, and of course a little modification around the neck pocket. But that's really all you need to get there, and there are no other modifications to this other than the aesthetic ones. Nothing's changed about the pickups. These are all the same pickups despite them all having new covers on there, and the guitar is pretty much the stock model with different coloured parts. If you do want to see me playing this Henry's guitar with the Scottish Pink Floyd, you have two more opportunities to do so. The 15th of May in Galashiels and the 11th of July in Larbert. You can get your tickets at scottishfloyd.com, link is in the description. So I'm going to go away and do the last few tweaks to this, get it cleaned up, restrung and ready for the next show. And I'll leave you with sounds of this being played live in Arbroath.